To another episode of the podcast. Dr. Thomas Hemingway here. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out.
All right. We have an incredible guest for you today. She's just an amazing woman. She's a physician, a board certified OBGYN. She was Mrs. Nebraska. I mean, she is so talented. She's got 3 children. She is unstoppable. And she wrote the coolest book ever because the title, like, you just cannot not recognize this thing. Hard to Kill. I have Dr. Jaime Seeman on the show today. Welcome, Jaime.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh my gosh, the pleasure is mine. And we are so excited to have you. What a gift. And I would just love to kind of start the conversation a little bit with a little bit of your backstory. Like, I know as a kid you're athletic, but how did you get to be the Mrs. Nebraska and on the Titan games and the OBGYN that you are so amazingly? Like, how does that all come together?
Yeah, I think life is so fascinating. Sometimes you're not really sure what these little paths mean, but I think that I'm where I'm supposed to be. But if we go back to my childhood, you're right. I grew up as a 3-sport athlete. I'm in Nebraska, for those of you that don't know, and I played collegiate softball. Was pursuing a degree in nutrition and exercise science. So really loved athletics and loved just that whole world of kind of health and wellness. But then I graduated college with this degree, met my husband, we got married, I went to medical school. And here I was with this Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science and Nutrition, but I made this transition to medical school and I was very suddenly sedentary, right? I had been this athlete my whole life where I was required to train at a very high level. And now suddenly I didn't have to do that. And I'll fully admit that as a female doing heavy weights and all of this strength training, I had a lot of body image issues that I think a lot of young women probably deal with. I grew up in the 80s and 90s where media told us that you're supposed to be this super skinny, tiny supermodel. And so I always was trying to balance this idea of femininity and just the prowess of like being an athlete and being physically strong. So I just stopped lifting weights like almost altogether. I did a little stint of like P90X when I was in medical school, but I was having trouble maintaining my weight. And the only thing I knew to do was to count calories. So I was counting calories. And then my husband really wanted to start a family when we were in medical school. So we decided to get pregnant for the first time. And during my pregnancy, it was the first baby, right? So you still have all this time on your hands. So I was working out, mostly doing cardio, was not lifting weights, and was eating okay. But once again, really just trying to count calories. And I failed my glucose testing during the pregnancy. And then after my first daughter was born, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And now I've graduated medical school and I'm a resident, and we decided to have 2 more pregnancies. And when it was all said and done, I'm out as a private practice OBGYN. I'm on the other side, right? This is what you've just been waiting for your whole life. And I was diagnosed with prediabetes. So here I'm on thyroid medication. I'm a pre-diabetic. And really, honestly, if you looked at me, I wasn't obese. I didn't look unhealthy. And so that was a big shock for me to think that I look pretty healthy. And I think people would still maybe describe me as athletic, but I had these preventable medical conditions. So I really set out back in 2015, just on this pathway of figuring out health and wellness again. And I realized that what I was taught in medical school was great information about treating lots of diseases, but nobody in the clinical setting was trying to prevent them, right? We were telling patients, well, you need to eat right. But even when it came to nutrition, I had this nutrition degree. The information that we were giving people was all over the board, right? Are you supposed to eat fat? Are you not supposed to eat fat? Is meat bad for you? Does it cause cancer? I don't know. So my husband and I, just on a very personal level, kind of started manipulating our diet at home. We ate kind of Whole30, then paleo, and then eventually kind of settled on a really high protein, low carbohydrate type diet, really, whole food. And our diet has even continued to evolve, since then. And we were really just trying to figure out how we could function as optimal human beings. I mean, at the end of the day, that was my goal. I was really tired. I was fatigued. I didn't even have the energy to work out. So when I first started all of this, I was not working out. After my third daughter, I was really doing kind of this very mild intensity version of like Pilates and bar classes. And so it wasn't until 2018 I started lifting weights again. And through all of this self-transformation, it transformed every area of my life. Like once the light bulbs came back on in my head, it changed the way I practiced medicine. It changed my marriage. It changed the way that I started to parent my children. And it really transformed my life. And I wrote the book because it is basically what I did. I mean, it is like, I'm not sitting up here on some podium telling you that I am the be all, end all, know all of all information. Obviously I have enough educational background that I can, filter through it easier than most. And so I really wanted to make it super simple. It is not in medical language. I really tried to write it so that my 10-year-old daughter, could understand it. But it's basically just the foundational way that I live my life. And that I think that if most of my patients did, we could avoid a lot of the problems that we see in modern day medicine. And it would allow doctors to get back to really, doing more investigational, medicine is cool, right? That we can perform surgery and some of the therapeutics that are available today. And it will be incredible in the next 10 to 20 years to see, where medicine goes. But as physicians, and I'm sure this can resonate a little bit with you, like we're burned out because it's just chronic disease. I mean, it's heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. That's just like what we see all day, every day. And it's sad, and it's limiting people's ability and in life to accomplish what they want. It's a burden on families. It's a burden on the medical system. It costs a lot of money. And so I really just hope that the book inspires people to live their life to the fullest. You kind of touched on it. Since my life has changed so much, I started pursuing a lot of other passions, including running for Mrs. Nebraska and Mrs. America, which I'll tell you what, I had never done a pageant ever in my life, but, really just about challenging yourself and trying things that you feel like are out of your scope and out of your reach, and really seeing what you can do when you try.
Yeah, no, that's so incredible. And I can echo with the book. You did write it in a way that anybody can pick it up and read it. And it does have, enough medical background in the science, but you don't feel bogged down at any point. It is amazing. It's practical. It's user-friendly, and it works. I can echo everything that you said here. I not that I like to disagree, but I didn't find anything, honestly, that I could disagree with, to be honest. It was amazing. So one of the things, and you start with food first, which is kind of my mantra, and you even talk about prioritizing protein, which I love to talk about. What was there any like one big thing that was the biggest needle mover, or was it just about the whole foods and avoiding processed foods? Like, what did you notice made the biggest difference in you?
Well, I certainly started with nutrition first. I think it's something we do multiple times per day, and we do it every day, right? So when you talk about making an impact, I think that that's going to make the largest impact in the shortest amount of time. It's incredible, what we see as far as changes in like blood glucose levels, insulin levels, the microbiome shift that happens within just days of changing the diet. So I think it's a place where people can start to see more immediate results, but also understanding that, like where I started in 2015 and where I am now, like I said, it's been an evolution. And I think for everybody, it's kind of becoming your own expert and figuring out how you feel and function best. Because if you go on social media, right, everything from a vegan, vegetarian diet to these carnivore diets and everything in between, I still think that we can all agree that just eating real whole foods. And so as we did this kind of like Whole30 paleo, right, that immediately eliminated all the processed garbage that we were eating. Of course, you're going to start to feel better, right?
Yeah.
But then when it comes to nutrition, when we think about being hard to kill, right, because that's the title of the book. And at the end of the day, that is what I want to achieve, right? Something is going to take me out. I don't know what it is. I don't really want to know, to be honest, but I want to have a level of physical, mental resiliency that when the hard hits come, it's okay. We move on, and that I'm really in charge, of what I'm able to do, physically and mentally in my lifetime. Well, when it comes to that, body composition is super important. It's not about being skinny. It's not about losing the body fat on your body. It's about being physically strong. Us as humans, we're built to do really strong physical, hard labor. And these days, you can drive a car to work, you can take the escalator, you can take the elevator. People know on social media, my, mantra is always take the stairs. I'm in a hospital where, think about how much that adds up, right? If I'm taking that staircase over and over and over every single day to go around on patients, it's just these small little things that make the biggest, profoundest impact on your health. And so, but when it comes to nutrition, getting back to that, I find in women's health that women are not good protein eaters, and fat and carbs taste really good. It's really easy to find fat and carbohydrate, calories, snacks, ideas, right? They taste so good. And that's why processed foods are high in both fat and carbs typically. Protein is something that you really have to take a very intentional, it's intentional work to get protein, right? Because there's not a lot of easily shelf stable, available, protein type snacks. And so that's been one evolution in our diet is we prep, we get protein ready. I make sure we've got a couple pounds of ground beef on hand, or we've got, a bowl of shrimp and scallops defrosting or whatever it is, so that we have that available to us. Because I find that when you don't plan for things like that, we tend to fall for what's convenient and what's easy. And these days that typically comes in a box or a bag or a jar or something like that with a whole long ingredient list. So from a nutritional aspect, yes, eating whole foods, but at the end of the day, animal foods, your beef, your dairy, your eggs, these things are extremely nutrient dense. And, calorie for calorie, you're going to get more nutrient density out of these foods. So I think prioritizing those things in the diet, filling the gap with some plants. We eat fruits around here. We eat a few vegetables, and really limiting everything that's processed, because it contains a lot of calories and just not a lot of nutrients. And I wish I had known back then what I know now, but as an OBGYN, it's so important that we are repleted of nutrients and things like that, because when a woman is going to build this small human baby, the body is using every building block to make that from inside of her. And so, for me, thinking about impacting health for generations to come, getting women healthier so that they're healthier in their pregnancies is really important to me, because you set changes in your baby's DNA. These are called epigenetic changes, the way that you interact with your environment, what you're eating, how you're sleeping, chemicals that you come across. These things can turn off and on genes in your baby's DNA. So it's not just about like making sure that your baby's spinal cord develops. Like, it's literally changing genetic code for your family for a long, long, long time. So that's just why I think nutrition is so important, and it's just the easiest place to start.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just talk us through quickly, like, what does a normal, let's say, start of the day meal look like? I don't know if you eat a typical breakfast, or if you do, what does that look like? Just give us a quick rundown of what Dr. Seeman's daily meal plan might look like.
I think most people would think my diet is very boring, but I think that people that eat a lot of the same things, they tend to find more consistency. I think when people try to get fancy with it, you're going to Pinterest and Instagram and trying to come up with these elaborate ideas. It's just like, you have to keep it simple. I joke around here, I do like cooking. I just don't have a lot of time to make anything that involves more than 3 ingredients. So my daily schedule, basically. So I usually wake up around 5 a.m. and my workout comes first. I always say pay yourself first, because I know that if I put that workout later in the day, it might not happen. Somebody might go into labor, my kids might have something. So I wake up, kind of do my little morning routine. I hit the gym, I work out. Now, as I said, there's been this evolution in my diet. I used to intermittent fast. So I used to fast until noon. And most days, like non-training days, I think that works great. But I just recently shared a story looking at this study on eating earlier in the day. And I had a guest on my podcast a while back that was like, when you go into the jungles and like these shamans and people like that, they all eat their largest meal for breakfast, like a moderate lunch, and then, something very small at like dinner time. And there's actually a lot of science behind that, and circadian rhythm and all of that. So I used to fast till noon, but now, since I work out in the morning, I think getting a large protein meal after a workout is a great idea. It's also a great time if you want to incorporate a few carbohydrates. You really don't need that many, even 10 to 20 grams. That would be a good time post-workout. So I would typically in the morning, I usually will do eggs. That's just an easy thing for me. A couple scrambled eggs, maybe a little bit of fruit. And then at lunchtime, depending on what my clinical and surgical schedule is, it typically involves like 6 to 8 ounces of protein, something that I've prepared the night before, or sometime my husband and I will just make lunches for the whole week and it's all the same thing. So it's typically like ground beef, or maybe shrimp or salmon or something along those lines, maybe a few vegetables, some sauerkraut. I will occasionally do some dairy when I'm just trying to change up the flavors of things, some cheese or cottage cheese or sometimes even yogurts. And then our dinners, the whole family just eats together, and it typically is like wild caught salmon, like I said, shrimp or scallops. We do eat a lot of beef. So we eat a lot of beef in our house. There is a particular cow, a farm in Nebraska called Certified Piedmontese that's a lot leaner. So I love that too, because you can even find leaner cuts of red meat and then you can manipulate the fat. So we might do avocados or butter, olive oil or something like that to add some fat in there. And then my kids do eat, some rice and more starchy vegetables and things like that. Kids are super active. They're in athletics and sports, and they certainly have more of a carb tolerance than my husband and I do. But if you like eating carbs, having a lot of muscle mass is a great reservoir for glucose and glycogen. So I eat more carbs now than I did back when I had prediabetes. I was very much like in ketosis, but I would describe our diet now as more just low carb or low glycemic index. But that's pretty much we eat a lot of the same foods and, we save recipes. Like I'll make a carnivore pizza or something on a Friday night if I have time, but we eat a lot of steak and beef in our house.
Yeah. Do you want to know why I exclusively use ExpressVPN? It's because there's so many hackers out there, viruses, big tech companies trying to harvest your data, and those that are snooping on you on public space Wi-Fi, like at the airports I frequent, trying to steal your identity, your data. And so because of this, I use ExpressVPN to protect myself and my family from these online threats. And so I can surf without stress and then sleep well at the end of the day. So why not protect yourself today at expressvpn.com/Dr. Thomas. That's EXPRESSV as in Victor, PN.com/Dr. Thomas for a free 3 months of protection. Why not? I promise you will sleep better at night as I do. So check it out, expressvpn.com/Dr. Thomas for a free 3-month trial.
Now that's great. I always love to start the day with protein, and I eat eggs, and I'm boring like you, like nearly every single day. If I don't eat eggs one day of the week, it's a little bit unusual.
Yeah, we go through quite a few dozen eggs.
Yeah, we buy, I think, 6 dozen at a time, and it lasts us 2 or 3 days, and we got to get some more. And oh my gosh, we've tried to raise our own, but we have too many feral cats that come and just snip those guys away because we don't believe in caging them up and all that. And we let them run around and they just don't last. So
yeah, we have a lot of coyotes and hawks and falcons and bald eagles behind our house, and I don't know that
they wouldn't last.
Be eating the chicken pretty quickly. Yeah.
And how do the kids do with the diet that you guys share in the family, which is just a real food diet? Do they ever feel like they're missing out with maybe like they see, because they're going to regular school, they see other kids eating different things? Like, how has that been for you? How's it been for them? Talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So when we first started changing our diet, my husband and I would be cooking our own dinner and the kids would be having something else. So this is like full-fledged honesty. Up until about 2017, my husband and I would be eating salmon and Brussels sprouts, and the kids would be eating mac and cheese. And I think that, when your kids are really little, these convenience, like toddler kid foods, they are really easy, right? Like goldfish crackers and all of this. And we did that. Like, we didn't know any better. But then the kids would say, like, why are you eating that? Like, why are you eating something different than I'm eating? So my husband and I had a heart to heart, and I said, gosh, there's no reason that they can't eat what we eat. So I remember the first time that I made the kids salmon, I was like, oh my God, they're not going to eat this. Put some butter on there, put some, little lemon pepper and salt. And I think one of my daughters loves to dip things. So I remember, I think I gave her some like tzatziki sauce or something, but they just they ate it. And I'm just like sitting there waiting for somebody to complain or tell me they're not going to eat it. And they just ate it. And the same thing with steak and beef and all these other proteins we were eating, they loved it. And now my oldest daughter, on her birthday, when you ask her where she wants to go, she picks the finest chop house in Omaha, Nebraska. She knows what a really good steak is. But I think I think a lot of it is self-imposed. I mean, it's self-imposed as a mom. You think I just want everybody to eat dinner and be happy and, not complain. And so they eat what we eat, and they know that they should prioritize protein. So if my children have carbohydrates, some rice and whatever it is, they know that they can't have more fruit or things like that unless they finish their protein. And we just talk about it really from an educational standpoint. How does the food make us feel? How does the food make us function? What does the food, do for me? And, they will occasionally have cake or a piece of candy or something like that. I'm not a dictator. I'm here to educate and facilitate them becoming their own human beings. And sometimes they don't make the right choice, and that's okay. And it's funny because sometimes they'll be tired or cranky, and they'll kind of come to that self-realization of how the food makes them feel. And that's just magical for me to watch that unfold. Or they know if they're going to eat something that has what I would call naked carbohydrates. If they're going to have a piece of cake or something, that we should use that energy. So we should go out in the driveway and shoot some hoops, or we shouldn't lay down on the couch. And so, but yes, they go to public school. So it's been eye-opening for them to see the school lunch and what gets served. And there's it's very devoid of protein. And I was reading some statistic that we go to a public school, which means they have to abide by US dietary guidelines, which already has abysmal protein recommendations, but the school only has to hit a certain percentage of the USDA recommendations. And so it's low. It's a lot of carbs and very low protein. So sometimes my kids take their own lunch. Sometimes they'll get the burger at school and take the bun off. That's what my oldest one does a lot. It's eye-opening to hear. It's eye-opening to actually hear what other kids who bring cold lunch have in their lunch boxes. My daughter came home one day and said there was a girl who every day brings a sandwich. So white sandwich bread with butter and sugar, brown sugar. I don't remember, or cinnamon or something. I was just a butter sandwich. And then she had, a bag of chips. And it was literally all carbohydrates. There was no protein in this girl's lunchbox. And it's eye-opening, but I think my kids are getting smart about it. And like I said, I think you just as a family really have to come at that, just the education side of it, and learn together as a family and cook together and teach them how to cook. Because that's a big thing too. At some point they're going to leave their house and they need tools to be able to eat healthy like this for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And it won't be long. I'm sure your daughter's already helping you when you cook, and she'll probably, your oldest will be hey, I can take care of that. I can do that. My kids actually, I didn't really ask them to help cook or anything. They just started wanting, especially I have two little girls and they are the most helpful. My boys are yeah, whatever, I got other stuff to do. But it's been so funny because we share a similar experience with the kids going to school and what they see. And I let them try whatever they want to try. And I just let them try to pay attention to how they feel afterwards. And they usually offer it up to me and they'll be like, Dad, I ate this thing at school and I felt bad afterwards. My tummy ached, and we talk about what it was. And I let them kind of offer it and let them experiment, because you certainly don't want to just say, no, you can't do that. No, because what are they going to do? Of course they're going to do that, right? They want to try everything. And as long as they're kind of paying attention to how they feel, and you're, teaching them good habits at home, which is eating real food, they're going to make the right decision. They're going to want in fact, my kids tell me, Dad, I wish I could have had an avocado today in my lunch. And they'll come home and no joke, they will slice this avocado in half, sit down with a spoon, and that's it. That's their snack. They'll put a little salt on it maybe, but they'll literally eat this stuff up. And it's amazing. It just makes me smile. Kind of like when your daughter was telling you that about the food. It's just when, they want to eat the good stuff and they're like, gosh, I miss whatever. Cause maybe my kid ate school lunch today and they're like, yeah, that stuff sucked.
Yeah, I think when you eat quality food, then like you look at this other stuff and you're like, oh my God, like it just even more and more and more just looks like a Frankenfood.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I want to get into something you mentioned earlier. We'll just pop on over to the movement section or the exercise, because you said something that I think a lot of our listeners have heard all throughout their lives, especially the moms out there, the women who have been kind of told this thing about, oh, I don't want to work out or lift weights at least because I'm going to get these big muscles. I'm not going to be feminine. And it's going to, like, you and I know that's not true, but how do you approach that with women, especially because I have a big audience of women, probably 80% of my listeners are women, but you mentioned very clearly in the book, the power of strength training or actually lifting weights. Cardio is great. Nothing wrong with cardio. I do it too, but I think having that actual strength training component is not only great for our bodies and for longevity, but the best thing for our metabolism too. But how do you walk, especially those that are fearful, through this idea of like, I don't want to do the weights because I'm going to, not look feminine, or I'm going to get these big muscles. Like, just talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So, the question is like, why do people work out? So I think that a lot of women work out to try to maintain their weight. And there's a lot of cardiovascular exercise happening. And cardio is okay. I always tell people all movement is good movement. It's better than sitting. But when it comes to cardiovascular exercise, it's not a good strategy for building lean body mass. And when you think of the things that are most likely to kill you or make your life very miserable, like I mentioned earlier, heart disease, neurologic disease, cancer. These things are metabolic diseases. And if you want to fight against metabolic disease, having a lot of muscle mass is extremely protective. Muscle isn't just tissue that moves your bones and your structure. Yes, it does move our skeleton, but muscle is an endocrine organ. When you exercise, it secretes chemicals, it secretes myokines, it starts emptying its glycogen stores. It is a metabolic organ. And to protect yourself, to be harder to kill, you want to have a lot of muscle. And so how do we gain muscle? How do we gain lean body mass? And more importantly, how do we not lose lean body mass? Well, first of all, chapter 1, pillar 1, nutrition, we have to prioritize protein because there's something called muscle protein synthesis, which is this signal in the body to maintain that muscle and build that muscle. And we get that through eating about 30 to 50 grams of protein. And you want to do that multiple times per day. And as we age, we develop something called anabolic resistance. So you actually need more of these particular amino acids like leucine to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So grandma needs more protein at the Thanksgiving table than the grandkids do. Okay, so great. They're eating good. They're getting lots of protein multiple times per day. We have to put a strain on that muscle. We want to stress not only the muscle, but our bones. So when we think about women, especially going through menopause, the increased risk of osteoporosis and osteopenia, which is this softening of the bones, this demineralization of the bones, part of the way to send that signal to strengthen those bones is by doing resistance training. So it's not just for the muscle, it's for the bones. And as we age, when you think about aging, successfully, longevity, being able to, I just came off a Disney cruise. Okay. We went to Disney World right before that. And I was astounded the number of older people who needed motorized carts. They were everywhere. And these people couldn't even walk certain distances, let alone go up and down the stairs and or go hiking or do anything that's physically active. And so it's use it or lose it. There becomes a point in your life where you have to be very intentional about resistance training, jumping, running, sprinting, all of these things to keep those tissues healthy and viable, because not only does it secrete these amazing chemicals out into your body, but it also stimulates your nervous system. It's getting your brain to send these nerve signals down to your muscles. It's getting blood flow into these areas. And so resistance training, women are afraid to lift weights. They think that they're going to Can you hear me? You're muted. You're muted.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I don't know what happened there, but I got a great editor that'll figure this out. But
okay, perfect. I know where it cut off.
Okay.
So,
perfect. Yes. In fact, the motorized scooters and all that stuff on the Disney cruise. That's kind of where we were at.
Yeah. So, women are afraid to lift weights because they think it will make them look masculine. And I'll tell you right now, as somebody who has strength trained most of my life, that takes a lot of work to look like one of those bodybuilder people. And so you must do resistance training. It can be done a variety of ways, even body weight exercises, resistance bands, dumbbells. Find a trainer, find somebody that can educate you a little bit on how to do it, but find a way to do it consistently, multiple times per week. You can continue to do cardiovascular exercise. If you're like me and your time is very limited, doing short bouts of high intensity interval training, like sprinting. And this is very different than what most people think HIIT is. Most people aren't doing true high intensity interval training. I mean, this is maximum capacity. And it's usually not very long. Like studies show 2 minutes of this is all you need. All right. Everybody has 2 minutes in their day. So, but the resistance training, I tell people, if you only have 30 minutes to go to the gym, do resistance training. It stimulates the muscles, stimulates the bones, and protects you from falls, protects you against metabolic disease. And from a body composition standpoint, that's what most people are trying to achieve. They want a lean, muscular physique, even women.
This holiday season, I've been trying out many different kinds of healthy hot cocoa because who doesn't like sitting by the fireplace, warming up those toes and sipping some nice hot cocoa? So why not get some of the best quality stuff? And so far, I've found an amazing 6-ingredient organic hot cocoa with 4-Sigmatic. That's F-O-U-R Sigmatic. And they even have a blend that I'm loving right now with the organic reishi mushrooms because reishi has been shown to boost your immune health. It even has anti-cancer activity and it can fight fatigue and depression. So why not get your pack of this amazing 4-Sigmatic healthy hot cocoa? Try the reishi and get it today. And you can even get 15% off with the code DRTH for Dr. Thomas Hemingway. That is DRTH. Enter that code at 4sigmatic.com. That's FOURSIGMATIC.com and the code DRTH because 4-Sigmatic offers many healthy functional blends of high quality coffee, creamers, and much more. Check it out, 4sigmatic.com with the code DRTH, and I think you'll love it like I do. Aloha.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And I love that in the book, even you show that picture of you from when you were basically the weight, I think was only 10 pounds different, but your body composition looks completely different. Mm-hmm. And you were literally 10 pounds different in one picture than the other. And the difference was you were under muscled maybe in the first picture. And in the second, you had, plenty of muscle and very toned, very fit, and I think one of the things too that, and I don't want to say this, my wife struggles with this, I know, and she's super active, and her favorite class is Orange Theory because it has those intervals. Like she goes all out for whatever it is, 30 seconds, then you go to your other pace for 2 minutes, then you go 30 seconds all out, like just like you're saying, like literally as fast as you can freaking go, like 10 plus miles an hour during her sprints, and then down to I think 7 or something in her other ones or whatever it is. But it's like those interval things, she loves those, and it's just like, I don't know. I can't even keep up with that. I went to a couple of those classes and like, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't love cardio. And for me, even though it's interval, I'm just not a cardio guy. Like, I don't know. I love to surf, and that's like spurts of energy. I lift weights, I ride my bike, but I ride it uphill. So I do get my cardio, but like in a gym, I just can't even do that. So once the last decade came through and we were starting to look at resistance training and how powerful that is, I'm like, well, this is what I always inherently knew because that's what my body liked. I never liked to go for a run. Like I just thought, why would anybody want to go for a run? Like that just seems boring, right?
I can't stand running. I did 2 half marathons and check off the box and I'm done.
Good for you. My wife has been trying to get me to do that. She used to be a marathon runner. In fact, she she wouldn't let me say this if she knew, she's not listening right now, but she got first place in a marathon in her age group several years back. And this was a marathon with like over 20 something thousand participants.
Wow.
She got first place in her age group. And I've never even run a single marathon. And she says that at one point in my life, I have to run one with her. And I'm telling her I'm turning 50 next year. Maybe that'll be the year, because supposedly the dudes out there, they reach their peak in that kind of exercise somewhere in their 40s or something like that. So maybe I might do that. But I think the resistance training piece, which efficiency you mentioned, I think that is golden. Like, you can get the biggest bang for your buck with resistance training, and you get the muscle which you need for metabolism to avoid later in life the falls and the sarcopenia that actually doesn't have to happen. I think in medicine, we assume that it has to happen. Oh, everybody gets older, they all lose muscle mass. It's like, but why? Like, look at Mark Sisson. He's not losing muscle mass. That guy's 70 something and he's freaking jacked. He looks amazing. Like, we can do this. Like, why not? Right. So I love that you do that. What do you teach your kids about exercise? I mean, kids are easy, right? They're just naturally active, but is there anything specific? Do they say, hey, mom, teach me like some kind of like little workout? Or if you're doing a home workout, do they want to do it next to you? Or what does that look like?
Yeah. When I go down to the gym, it's not very long that the door is opening and somebody is coming in the gym, and they are watching and they are mimicking what my husband and I do. They're picking up, the smallest kettlebell, the smallest weight. They want to do that. They want to do what we're doing. And I love involving them. I think it's a great way to spend time with your children. I think a lot of moms think, oh, I have to work out, and now this is just one more thing that's taking me away from being an engaged parent or being a mother. Involve your children. Obviously, there's certain gyms, like Orange Theory probably isn't going to let you come let your kid run on the treadmill next to you. But you can go out as a family, make a little circuit in the driveway. We do that sometimes. We've got a tire out there. We could find some of their toys, like make a little circuit for them. My girls are involved in athletics, and my oldest two are involved in kind of like a strength and conditioning program. But because I think it's good to teach them how to move their body in space, plyometrics, how to be explosive. And as long as they enjoy it. But I'll tell you right now, it's Friday here in Nebraska, the day we're recording this. And they asked me if they could go tonight at 4:30, which, like most kids on a Friday, right? Like, they don't, but they love it. They love it. They love competing. They love racing the boys. So I think, as a mom of little girls, I think it's important to teach your daughters what their body can do physically, and that they are physically strong and that they have that capability and capacity.
Oh, I love that. I can just picture it right now, because I know when my wife does her home workouts, which she does like 2 or 3 days of Orange Theory, and then all the other days, whatever's left, 3 or 4 days left, she does home workouts. And we have different equipment every place, laying around every room of the house. In fact, my funny thing that I like to tell people is, like, while you're working, like, take a couple of minutes and just put a weight up in the air. Like, I kid you not, I trip over weights. They're in every place of the house. We have weights, kettlebells, like all this stuff. But when my wife does her workouts at home, my girls, and for some reason, it's not the boys, maybe they just, I don't know, but they love to do what she's doing, and they'll grab like whatever our smallest weight is, 2 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever that is. And they'll mimic all the stuff she's doing. And it's the cutest thing, but they're learning exactly what you just said. They're learning how to move their body, how to just, do these different movements and coordination type things. And my wife, she's big into music. She puts on the stereo, like it's blasting, and the boys are like, come on, turn that down. And the girls are having dance party with weights. Like, they're literally like throwing these things up, doing dance moves. And it's one of my favorite moments to watch in the house.
Love it.
It's golden.
I love it. That's awesome. Incredible.
So one thing I wanted to briefly ask you about, because this was one of my major weaknesses, just from a personal level, and maybe it was for you, I don't know, but we were trained, I'm guessing you as well, in our schooling, especially medical school. Sleep was not something that was ever considered to be a superpower. For me, sleep was always a weakness in sort of that medical training perspective. I was literally told in my 3rd year of medical school that every hour that I slept was an hour that I was missing learning something, because I could be up all night at the hospital and see this one case or do this one procedure or whatever that was. And back in those days, this was before the Nattergard and ILIF data, where we found out about the lymphatic system in the brain and all that. We didn't know all those things. This was in the 1990s when I was in medical school. And so we didn't know about the real, like, awesomeness that happens with sleep, the autophagy and the lymphatic, flushing out all the toxins and all that stuff. Has sleep ever been something you've struggled with? And if not, that's fine too. But just tell us your story and what are your high level recommendations about sleep?
Yeah, so I've never had trouble sleeping in my life. But when I went through medical school, I experienced the same thing. I would see classmates who would literally stay up all hours of the night before a test, trying to, memorize things. And I'm very competitive. So, when it comes to those types of things, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice that too. And right, sleep seems like something easy to sacrifice for most of us. We only get 24 hours a day. So if we're sleeping 8 hours a day, what if we just slept 6 hours a day? That gives me like 2 more hours to get things done. But when I was in medical school, my husband was a police officer and he was working nights. So we worked like basically opposite schedules. And even as a resident, same thing. And so basically, we were always coming and going, passing in the night. I was working, overnight shifts at the hospital. So our circadian rhythms in these like years of our life, like it was just survival. I mean, you just slept when you could. And we had small children, right? So you're up at night breastfeeding, you're changing diapers, you're doing all these things. And so it wasn't until our kids were fully sleeping through the night, my husband actually finally got off of his night shift, that we had more of like a normal routine. And I realized what a huge difference it made. Like for him getting off of night shift, like cleaning up his diet, like his headaches went away. All these things just started to improve. And I really started to dive into this sleep data because I started seeing these statistics about like healthcare workers and shift workers and like the real profound impact that it can have on your health. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So then I started asking patients who would come in with certain complaints. I'm like, how are you sleeping? And they're like, oh, I sleep horribly, right? They've got undiagnosed sleep apnea, or they, are in menopause and they're progesterone deficient and their sleep is horrible. And it's incredible when you can get people to start sleeping better, how much it will change their daytime function. But I think what people don't understand is you have to consciously get yourself into a place to sleep well, right? We think we just like lay down, close eyes, fall asleep. Not quite how it works. Good sleep starts during the day. So it is by getting good sunlight into your eyes, because what actually makes us fall asleep is the absence of sunlight, the body cooling down. We're in these bedrooms that are too hot, too thick of blankets. We're eating really late in the day. We're using a lot of caffeine and stimulants. We're drinking alcohol. So we're doing all these things that really don't foster a proper sleep environment. And then we wonder why we're so tired and why we need an energy drink in the morning. So if you can really start to, this whole pillar is really just about kind of figuring out your circadian rhythm, finding out how to really prioritize sleep and get good sleep. And in the book, like we talk about sleep debt and things like this, it's real and it will take years off your life. It will increase your risk for chronic disease, cancer, all of it. And so it's not cool anymore to sacrifice your sleep. Okay. Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses. It will pay off in the end if you can really prioritize good sleep. And it's unfortunate. I mean, some people, and I get this question a lot, like I'm on call basically 365 days a year. I may get called for a delivery at 2 a.m. So when I can get quality sleep, I get it. But, there are going to be disruptions that happen, but you just do the best that you can and really try to set yourself up for success.
The rest of this amazing episode with the Dr. Jaime Seeman is continuing now. In fact, I'll be asking her about how to avoid common toxins in your life. We'll even talk about how to do a cleanup right at home, how to get rid of some of these nasty things that are literally hiding in plain sight in most of our homes and in most of our things. And we'll talk about relationships. We'll talk about how to build long-term success. And we'll talk about what the most precious assets of health and life are. You don't want to miss this. To be able to access the rest of this content, please be sure to click the link in the description to find out how you can become a member of the Thrive community, where you'll be able to participate in live Q&A sessions with me. Also get members-only content coming out to you nearly daily, as well as ad-free podcasts and so much more. So don't forget to click on that link to access all this amazing information, because we can't wait to have you there on the inside with us. And until then, a big aloha and just want you to know how much I appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope I can see many of you live in Tampa coming up this January. It's going to be amazing. What an amazing event. AlignEventsLive.com. I will be speaking there live, as well as many other amazing guests, including the amazing Trent Washington, Patrice Washington, my wife, and so many more. Hope to see you there.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss out on any future episode. And I'd love to hear your comments and feedback. If there's any topic you'd love to hear about, you're dying to know, burning questions, please comment below and let me know what future topics are of interest to you.
Disclaimer: nothing in this video is medical advice. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.